I'm Richard from Electric Classic Cars, and on this week's episode, sponsored by Mauser Electronics, we're talking all about battery packs and how to build them and what design considerations you need to take into account when doing so. So let's get into it. Now, designing a battery pack is much like juggling a number of balls at the same time. There's four main balls, I'd say. Number one is the available space, and in Jensen Intercept here, there's quite a bit of space. There's available weight, and again, click on the link above if you want to see how much weight we took out of this car, because there was a lot, and you don't want to go above the weight that got taken off, obviously, for handling, but also legal reasons. These cars were designed to carry the weight that they were designed to carry. Number three, I would say, is the voltage. What voltage have you got to get this battery pack up to be able to drive the motor? And usually that's about 400 volts in most of our conversions. And then fourthly, amps. How much amps does this battery pack need to cope with to be able to, satisfy that motor? If it's a large Tesla drive unit, for instance, they could pull up to 1,000 amps. Can the battery pack cope with that? So if you want maximum performance, you've got to be able to give the maximum amount of amps that the motor wants, if you like. So those are the four main ones. There are other considerations as well, but notice none of those is range, because range is a resultant from essentially what you can physically, practically put into the vehicle. So range drops out of the equation at the end, if you like. So we'll start with the battery pack itself. Let's get into the electrical side of things. Now, once you've got the available space, and you can do that through 3D scanning or CAD, two methods of CAD, don't forget, computer-aided design or cardboard-aided design. Once you've got that available space, you can then figure out what shape, if you like, a battery you're going to use. And don't forget, you've always juggling different balls as well. At the same time, you've got to put in enough of those batteries to get up to 400 volts, for instance. So there's two packs here, one here and one here. And by looking at them, I'm pretty sure these are 911 packs. So there's a rear and a front. So these are fitting in roughly into the available space that's available in a Porsche 911. And then once that's built up, obviously these are CAL modules with different, they're all kind of bolted together here with coolant plates in between. Once you've got the battery packs themselves raw, you can't just drop them into a car. You've got to put them into a battery box, and that's where fabrication come in. So let's have a look at those guys. I just want to have a quick chat about connectors, because we get complimented, and thank you for those that do compliment us, that our builds look very professional and OEM. And part of that can be put down to the fact that we use OEM EV connectors like these guys here. And that is where Mauser Electronics comes in. So let's have a little bit of a chat about that. Now, safety and quality is pretty paramount when you do an electric conversion for obvious reasons. And Mauser.com has become pretty much our one-stop shop for many components that we use in the conversions. But here I just want to concentrate a little bit on connectors. Now, don't forget, high voltage is orange, not high voltage is not orange. So when we've got to get things like communications and low voltage out of something like a junction box or a battery box, we'd use things like these Deutsch connectors. So these are multi-pin Deutsch connectors there that would go in the bulkhead and that would connect onto it. And then there's Molex, that's another common one that we use as well. And on the high voltage side of things, we'd use things like TE connectivity and Amphenol. And don't forget, these go right the way up in size to 70 mil, if not 90 mil cable as well, which you'll see on some of our battery boxes. So Mauser's a great place for us to get all this from, because essentially it's all available in so many different variants. Now, fabrication is an extremely important part of the process, because not only does it need to protect the batteries that are inside, but obviously it needs to mount them to the box itself. So you'll see a number of holes around this box here where the pack is actually mounted to the box itself. But the box itself then needs to be mounted onto the car. So you'll see mounting points here or here and other places where they're picking up on existing mountings, if you like engine mounts, to bolt this to the vehicle itself. And also, we've got to get the electric that's in here out. So to do that, you'll see a number of holes where the connectors will connect into. I just mentioned that before. But also there's an odd hole here, which you're probably wondering, what's that odd hole here? Well, this is a blast vent. So if things go really pear-shaped in here and the battery goes into thermal runaway and it needs to release the pressure, the gases inside, this vent will pop and those gases will escape. So once the fabrication guys have built this up and we've done a test fit, then we need to get it powder coated and on to the next process. Now, in true Blue Peter fashion, and our international viewers will be scratching their heads wondering what I'm talking about there, but UK guys, you know. Here's one I prepared earlier, because this is all done, it's empty, and we've done a dry run, so we know all of the things inside fit. And now we're starting to look at cable management. So these are 3D printed cable management to be able to bring the cables that come out of these plugs that way. And there's probably some that go that way as well. So the next thing that we've got to do here is fill it full of batteries. So now we have a battery pack inside the battery box, and these are Tesla modules. There's around about 60 kilowatt hours of energy in here. And as well as needing to get the energy into and out of this box, we also need to get the coolant in and out. And that's what's going on here. So these are the coolant lines. You've got the in coming in here, and that will go to there, and the other ones over there. And then once that goes to the batteries and comes out a little bit warmer, it'll come out there. So you've got your intake and outtake there. So that's the coolant side of things. Let's have a look at the electric side of things. Now, once you've got all of your battery pack in and all the bus bars sort of connecting them all up, you'll have something like this inside the battery box as well, because you'll have contactors. You usually have two. If you've got CCS, for instance, you'll have two pairs. So you'll have contactors, pre-charge contactors, main fuses, ancillary fuses for things like air conditioning, chargers, heaters and other bits and pieces that are also running off a 400 volt system. And you'll also have a number of boxes which actually aren't on the board yet. Things like, isolation monitoring, charge controllers and other bits and pieces. So there'll be, as well as the batteries and the coolant system, you'll have a kind of very similar components to this in the battery box there as well. And then you'll also have all the things that come out going to the connectors. And we just covered connectors earlier. So on the outside of the battery box then, you'll have a load of connectors connected to all this to get the energy in and out and the comms in and out. Now, after all that, you end up with something like this, which is a finished battery box. And it's sealed, tested, and ready to drop into an Aston Martin. And as you can imagine, it's going to fit snugly into the available space and mount onto the available mounts that's in the car. And you can see some of the connectors from Mauser here. There's a three-way Amphenol there. There's a Molex over there. Also, you can probably see the coolant lines in and out as well. And if you're wondering what these things are here, there's obviously low voltage loom that's going to be going this way and down there and around here. There's your blast vent as well. And if you're wondering what these things are here, well, there's a really cool cover that's going to be going over this rather dull battery box. That is something we'll cover on another episode, so stay tuned for the Aston Martin episode coming soon as well. So now, hopefully that's given you a little bit of an insight into what complexities are within a battery box and some of the considerations you need to take into account when you're building one, because from the outside, they look quite dull, but there's a lot going on inside them. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this episode and it's given you some insights as to what's in those big black mystery boxes of ours. And thanks to Mauser Electronics as well for sponsoring the episode. Don't forget to go to mauser.com for all your electronic components needs. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed this episode and we'll see you on the next one.